On the morning of May 13th, 2011, a 6-year-old boy disappeared. There was no stranger abduction caught on camera, no confirmed sighting of him alone, no verified evidence that he ever left the care of the adult who was with him. His name is Timmothy Pitzen.
On the morning of May 13th, 2011, 6-year-old Timmothy Pitzen was seen checking out of the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells with his mother Amy, but he was never seen with her again. The next day, Amy was found dead in a motel in Rockford, Illinois.
He was last seen in the custody of his mother, Fry-Pitzen, during what was supposed to be a short trip following a family dispute. In the days that followed, Amy left a series of messages, some apologetic, some vague, some concerning in nature. Days later, she was found dead in a hotel room in Illinois. Timothy was not with her. What investigators were left with was not a crime scene that pointed clearly in one direction, but an absence of answers. No body, no proof of life, no verified transfer of custody. Only a handwritten note stating that Timothy was safe and being cared for by people who would never come forward. That claim has never been substantiated. More than a decade later, no evidence has confirmed where Timothy is, whether he is alive, or what truly happened in the final hours he was seen. His disappearance does not fit neatly into familiar categories. It was not a conventional kidnapping. It was not a runaway case. And it was not resolved by the death of the only known adult involved. What cannot be disputed is this: Timothy Pitzen did not choose to disappear. He did not author the note that shaped the investigation. He did not control the circumstances that removed him from the public view. He was 6 years old. This is not a story about mystery for mystery's sake. It is a record of what is known, what is documented, and what has never been resolved. It is about the limits of investigation, when the only person who might have provided clarity is no longer alive. This is the disappearance of Timmothy Pitzen. And this is what can be said, carefully, factually, and without assumption, about how a child vanished in plain sight and why his case remains unresolved. Before Timmothy Pitzen became a subject of national search, he was a child living an ordinary life in Aurora, Illinois. Timothy was 6 years old in the spring of 2011. He lived with his parents, James Pitzen and Amy Fry-Pitzen, and attended elementary school in the local area. Teachers and family members describe him as energetic, playful, and closely bonded to his parents. There is no indication in school records or early reporting that he was considered at risk, missing, or in danger prior to May of that year. His life, by all outward appearances, followed a familiar routine: school days, time at home, and family activities typical for a child his age. That routine changed in the days leading up to his disappearance. Amy Fry-Pitzen and James Pitzen were experiencing marital difficulties in the spring of 2011. Court records and later reporting indicate tension within their relationship. Though no active custody dispute or formal separation had been finalized at the time, what is documented is that the relationship was strained and that disagreements were ongoing. On May 11, 2011, 2 days before Timothy vanished, Amy checked into a hotel in Aurora alone. The following day, she returned home and picked Timothy up from school earlier than usual. School staff were told that the early pickup was part of a planned trip. That explanation did not raise immediate alarm. Parents occasionally removed children from school for family travel, and nothing about the request suggested urgency or distress. There were no reports of Timothy resisting or appearing frightened. No staff member documented unusual behavior at the time of pickup. From that point forward, all confirmed information about Timothy's whereabouts comes from adult actions and records, hotel stays, phone calls, receipts, and surveillance footage. There are no verified sightings of Timothy alone after he left school that day. Amy and Timothy traveled to multiple locations over the next several days, including Wisconsin and Illinois. Hotel records and receipts confirm their presence at several stops. Surveillance footage shows them together at some locations, including a water park in Wisconsin. These images, often replayed in news coverage, show Timothy walking beside his mother, appearing physically unharmed. They do not reveal his emotional state, nor do they provide insight into what he was told or understood about the trip. They show only that he was present. During this period, Amy made phone calls and left messages for family members. Some were apologetic in tone. Others were brief and ambitious. None provided a clear explanation of her intentions or plans. Importantly, none disclosed where Timothy would ultimately be taken, or with whom he might be left. There is no evidence that Amy contacted legal counsel, child welfare agencies, or formal third parties during this time. There is no documentation confirming that she arranged a lawful transfer of custody. What exists instead are fragments, partial explanations, movements across state lines, and statements that would later become central to the investigation. On May 13, 2011, Amy checked into a hotel in Rockford, Illinois. She was alone. Later that day, she was found deceased in her room. Authorities ruled her death a suicide. No signs of struggle were reported. No evidence suggested the presence of another person at the time of her death. Timothy was not found with her. In the room, investigators discovered a handwritten note. In it, Amy stated that Timothy was safe and being cared for by people who loved him. She also wrote that he would never be found. The note did not include names. It did not include a location. It did not include instructions or evidence that could be independently verified. Law enforcement immediately began treating Timothy as a missing child. From the onset, the investigation faced a significant limitation. The person who could clarify the meaning of the note, explain the decision made during the trip, or confirm Timothy's final location was no longer alive. As a result, every aspect of the case had to be reconstructed indirectly through timelines, surveillance footage, financial records, and witness accounts that could confirm movements, but not intent. It is important to distinguish what is known from what is assumed. What is known is that Timothy was in his mother's care when he was last seen. What is known is that he traveled with her across state lines. What is known is that no confirmed handoff to another caregiver has ever been documented. What is not known is whether Amy believed her statement to be true, whether it was meant to mislead, or whether circumstances changed in ways that were never recorded. Those questions remain unanswered. At the center of this case is not a conflict between adults, nor a debate about the interpretation of a note. It is a child whose fate became uncertain because every decision surrounding his final days was made on his behalf. Timothy did not leave behind statements. He did not make plans. He did not consent to the circumstances that removed him from public view. Understanding the background of this case is not about assigning blame in retrospect. It is about recognizing how a child's disappearance can occur without force, without witnesses, and without immediate recognition of danger, especially when trust and parental authority are involved. This context matters because it shapes everything that follows: the investigation, the limitations faced by law enforcement, and the questions that still remain unresolved. In the next section, we'll walk through the timeline of events, step by step, using verified records to trace where Timothy was known to be and where certainty begins to break down. What follows is a reconstruction of events based on confirmed records, school logs, hotel receipts, surveillance footage, phone data, and witness statements. This timeline reflects what can be documented, not what is assumed. May 11th, 2011. On Wednesday, May 11th, Amy Fry-Pitzen checked into a hotel in Aurora, Illinois. Records indicate that she was alone at the time. No unusual activity was reported, and there was no evidence that Timothy was with her that night. This hotel stay would later be understood as part of a broader sequence of travel, though its purpose was not explained in any messages left behind. May 12, 2011. On Thursday, May 12th, Amy returned home and picked up Timothy from his elementary school earlier than usual. School staff documented the early pickup. Amy reportedly told staff that she and Timothy were going on a family trip. This explanation did not prompt concern. There was no reports of distress, resistance, or unusual behavior from Timothy at the time. This is the last confirmed sighting of Timothy in a school or institutional setting. From this point forward, all sightings and confirmations of his presence come through adult-controlled environments, hotels, vehicles, and public venues where he was accompanied. May 12th through 13th, 2011, travel begins. After leaving the school, Amy and Timothy traveled north. Financial records and receipts showed hotel stays in Wisconsin. Surveillance footage from a water park in Wisconsin confirms that both were present together during this period.
May 11th, 2011 is a typical Wednesday for the Pitzen family. Nothing out of the ordinary. After breakfast and the usual get a kindergartner ready for school rush, Jim, Amy, and little Timothy pile into one car and they head out. The first stop is Greenman Elementary School, 7:45 a.m. Tim runs toward his teacher with his favorite Spider-Man backpack with a wave to his parents, that love you, bye, see you later. And that was the last time Jim saw his son. The next stop is Amy's office, a property management company. She gets out of the car. I love you. Hey, I love you too. See you later. She walks through the front door. Jim goes to work, but only for a couple of hours because kindergarten is a short day. So Jim heads back to school to pick up Tim around 10:30 a.m. Right away, he knows something's wrong when the staff is surprised to see him. Amy has already been there. Just half an hour after Jim dropped her off at work, she checked Timothy out at 8:30, claiming there was a family emergency. Security footage, phone records, and credit card charges mapped out some of their impromptu road trip. So from the elementary school, Amy and Tim stop at a car repair shop. Then they travel to the Brookfield Zoo. It's about an hour away just outside of Chicago. It's one of Tim's favorite spots. From there, they went to another one of his favorite places, the Key Lime Cove Resort in Gurnee, Illinois. It's a popular hotel and water park. The next day, Thursday, Amy stopped for clothes, toys, gas, and a little arts and crafts kit. That afternoon, she checked into another water park resort, the Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells. This is the last time Timothy is seen on camera.
The footage shows Timothy walking beside his mother, appearing physically unharmed. He is dressed casually, participating in normal activities. The footage does not include audio, conversations, or context. It cannot confirm what Timothy was told, what he understood, or how long the trip was intended to last. The images establish presence only. During this time, Amy made phone calls and left voicemails for family members. Some messages include apologies. Others were brief and unclear. None disclosed a destination, a long-term plan, or arrangements for Timothy's care. There is no evidence that Amy contacted legal authorities, child welfare services, or identifiable third parties during that phase of travel. May 13th, 2011, return to Illinois. On Friday, May 13th, Amy returned to Illinois and checked into a hotel in Rockford. Hotel records indicate that she arrived alone. There is no confirmed footage, receipts, or witness statements placing Timothy with her at the time of check-in. This absence is a critical point in the timeline. Later that day, Amy was found deceased in her hotel room. Authorities ruled her death a suicide. Investigators reported no signs of struggle and no evidence of another person present at the time. Timothy was not found in the room or on the property. The note. In the hotel room, investigators discovered a handwritten note. In it, Amy stated that Timothy was safe and being cared for by people who loved him. She wrote that he would never be found. The note did not name these individuals. It did not identify a location. It did not provide instructions, contacts, or verifiable details. The note's contents became central to the investigation, but it did not function as confirmation of Timothy's safety. Without corroboration, its claims could not be independently verified. Immediate response. Once Timothy was reported missing, law enforcement initiated a multi-state search. Alerts were issued. Transportation hubs were reviewed. Surveillance footage, toll records, and financial transactions were analyzed to track Amy's movements and identify any potential point at which Timothy could have been transferred to another person. No verified transfer was ever identified. No witnesses come forward confirming that they saw Amy leave Timothy with another caregiver. No documentation supports the existence of people referenced in the note. Every confirmed record places Timothy with his mother into the point where records no longer place him anywhere at all, where certainty ends. The timeline establishes several facts with clarity. Timothy was picked up from school by his mother on May 12th. He traveled with her to Wisconsin and was seen with her in public settings. He was not present when she checked into the Rockford Hotel on May 13th. What cannot be established is what happened between those points. There is no verified time, place, or witness marking the moments where Timothy disappeared from documented view. There is no evidence confirming whether the statement in the note reflected a completed action, an intention, or something else entirely. The timeline does not answer the central question. It only defines boundaries of what can be proven, and those boundaries are narrow. In the next section, we'll examine the investigation itself, how law enforcement approached the case, what avenues were pursued, and why the absence of direct evidence has continued to limit definitive conclusions. From the moment Timmothy Pitzen was reported missing, law enforcement faced an investigation unlike most child disappearance cases. There was no confirmed crime scene involving the child, and there was no living suspect or witness who could clarify what had occurred. Instead, investigators were left with a limited but significant set of materials: travel records, surveillance footage, phone logs, financial transactions, and a handwritten note whose claims could not be independently verified. The investigation began by reconstructing Amy Fry-Pitzen's movements in the days leading up to her death. Hotel records, receipts, toll data, and surveillance footage were located to establish where she traveled and when. These records confirm the sequence of locations already outlined in the timeline. They also helped rule out certain possibilities, such as extended stops at undocumented locations or travel outside the known route. What they did not reveal was a point at which Timothy could be conclusively placed with another person. Law enforcement reviewed surveillance footage from hotels, gas stations, restaurants, and the public attractions along the route. In footage where Timothy appeared, he was always accompanied by his mother. In footage where Amy appeared alone, Timothy was absent, but no footage captured a transfer, separation, or interaction suggesting a handoff. This absence of visual confirmation became a defining challenge. Investigators also analyzed phone records. Amy had made several calls and left voicemails for family members during the trip. Some of these messages included apologies and expressions of distress. None provided details about Timothy's location, caregivers, or future plans. Importantly, no calls were found that could be definitively linked to arranging long-term care for a child. There were no confirmed communications with adoption agencies, child welfare services, legal representatives, or identifiable individuals who later came forward. Financial records were similarly limited in what they could establish. Amy's bank activities showed routine expenses related to travel, hotel charges, food, and entertainment. There were no large withdrawals, no unusual transfers, and no transactions that clearly indicated payment to another party for childcare or transportation. Investigators considered whether Timothy could have been left with someone informally, outside legal or financial systems. This possibility, while discussed, could not be substantiated without witnesses or documentation. The handwritten note found in the hotel room was examined carefully. While the note stated Timothy was safe and being cared for, it did not meet the standard of evidence required to confirm a child's welfare. The lack of names, locations, or corroborating details meant the note could not be treated as proof. Investigators could not determine when the note was written, whether it reflected complete actions, or whether it described an intention that was never carried out. As a result, the note functioned as a statement, but not a resolution. Law enforcement expanded the search geographically. Alerts were issued across state lines. Tips were solicited from the public. Transportation hubs, including bus terminals and airports, were reviewed for evidence of travel involving Timothy. No confirmed sightings emerged. The investigation also involved interviews with family members and close contacts. These interviews helped establish background context, but did not produce information about a plan to remove Timothy permanently or place him with others. No one reported being asked to care for him. No one reported seeing him after the Wisconsin trip. No one reported receiving instructions or resources related to his custody. This lack of cooperation narrowed the range of conclusions investigators could responsibly draw. As time passed, the case transitioned from an active search to a long-term missing child investigation. Periodic reviews were conducted. Advances in databases and missing persons registries allowed the case to be revisited, but the underlying problem remained unchanged. Without a verified last sighting, independent from Amy Fry-Pitzen, investigators had no starting point beyond the known timeline. Without a confirmed crime, they had no scene to process. Without a witness, they had no testimony to test. The investigation did not stall due to inaction. It stalled because evidence did not exist in forms that could answer the central question. Over the years, tips have continued to come in. Some have been investigated and ruled out. Others have lacked sufficient detail to pursue. None have led to confirmation of Timothy's whereabouts. The case remains open. What law enforcement can say with certainty is limited to what records show and what evidence does not support. They cannot confirm that Timothy was placed safely with others. They cannot confirm that he died. And they cannot confirm that the note accurately describes reality. The investigation exists in a state of suspension, defined not by what has been discovered, but by what has never been proven. In the next section, we'll examine the unresolved questions that continue to shape the case, and why definitive answers have remained out of reach for more than a decade. Despite extensive reviews of records and repeated investigative efforts, the disappearance of Timothy Pitzen remains defined by unanswered questions. These are not gaps caused by neglect or oversight. They are gaps created by the absence of verifiable evidence. The most fundamental question is also the simplest to state. What happened to Timothy after he was last seen with his mother? There is no confirmed answer. Investigators can document where Amy Fry-Pitzen traveled. They can identify where Timothy was last seen with her. They can establish when she arrived alone at the Rockford Hotel. What they cannot determine is the moment at which Timothy's presence in the record ended, or what occurred immediately afterward. There is no verified location marking his disappearance. There is no witness who observed a separation. There is no documentation confirming a handoff to another person. Another central question concerns the handwritten note. The note states that Timothy was safe and being cared for by people who loved him. This statement has often been cited publicly, but it remains uncorroborated. Investigators cannot confirm who these people were, whether they existed, whether the statement described an action already taken, or whether it reflected an intention rather than a completed plan. The note does not include identifying details. It does not reference legal arrangements. It does not align with any documented communications or transactions. As a result, it cannot be used to establish Timothy's status. A third unresolved question involves timing. If Timothy was separated from his mother prior to May 13th, the timeline does not reveal when or where this occurred. Travel records do not indicate a pause or deviation that clearly corresponds to such an event. Surveillance footage does not capture it. Receipts do not support it. If separation occurred, it happened outside documented systems. This leads to another question. Could such an action have occurred without leaving evidence? Investigators have acknowledged that it is theoretically possible for an informal transfer of custody to occur without documentation. However, possibility is not proof. Without witnesses or corroboration, this line of inquiry cannot be confirmed or ruled out. The investigation has also had to confront a difficult reality. The only person who might have clarified these questions is no longer alive. Amy Fry-Pitzen's death eliminated the possibility of follow-up questions, clarification, or verification. Her intentions, beliefs, and decision-making process cannot be tested against evidence or challenged through interview. This absence limits not only what can be known, but what can be responsibly inferred. Another unresolved issue is whether Timothy could still be alive. There is no evidence confirming his death. There is no evidence confirming his survival. This ambiguity has shaped how the case is categorized. Timothy is listed as missing. He is not presumed deceased. His case remains open precisely because neither outcome can be established through evidence. Over the years, occasional claims and reported sightings have surfaced. These have been investigated as they arose. None have been substantiated. In some instances, individuals were definitively ruled out through follow-up investigation. Each claim underscores the same limitation. Without baseline confirmation of Timothy's fate, new information cannot easily be anchored to verified facts. What remains most striking is how little separates certainty from uncertainty in this case. Up to this point, Timothy's movements are documented. Beyond that point, there is nothing, no physical trace, no confirmed sighting, no record that establishes what came next. The unresolved questions in this case persist not because answers have been ignored, but because they cannot be reached through the evidence available. And so this case remains suspended between what can be proven and what cannot be confirmed. In the next section, we'll examine the present-day status of Timmothy Pitzen's case, how it is classified today, what efforts remain ongoing, and how his disappearance continues to be documented more than a decade later. More than a decade after his disappearance, Timmothy Pitzen remains listed as a missing child. His case has not been closed. It has not been reclassified, and it has not reached a legal conclusion. Law enforcement agencies continue to treat Timothy's disappearance as unresolved. He is not presumed deceased because there is no evidence establishing that outcome. At the same time, there is no verified proof that he is alive. This dual uncertainty defines the present status of this case. Timothy's information remains active in national missing persons databases. Age-progressed images have been created and updated over the years in an effort to reflect what he might look like as he grows older. These images are based on known childhood photographs and standardized progression methods. They are tools, not predictions. Investigators continue to encourage the public to review these images and report credible information, while acknowledging that time complicates recognition and verification. Periodically, new leads emerge. In some instances, individuals have come forward claiming to be Timothy or suggesting that they may have encountered him. Each of these claims has been investigated. In cases where testing or documentation was possible, the claims were ruled out.
April 3rd of 2019, a woman in Newport, Kentucky actually spotted a teenager walking alone in the streets, running across a bridge over the Ohio River. And he was acting kind of weird, so she ended up asking who he was or if he needed help. And this boy told her that he was Timmothy Pitzen and that he had been held by two men that were built like bodybuilders for 7 years and he had just escaped from them. Finally, it came in that this was not Timmothy Pitzen. In fact, this was not even a boy, 23-year-old Brian Michael Reaney.
None have resulted in confirmation. These episodes often generate brief public attention, followed by disappointment when the claims cannot be substantiated. For investigators and for Timothy's family, they serve as reminders of how unresolved cases can resurface without moving closer to resolution. The lack of new evidence has not led to the case being abandoned. Instead, it is placed into a category familiar to long-term missing child investigations, cases that remain open indefinitely, reviewed periodically, and revisited when new information becomes available. There are no active suspects publicly identified. There are no charges pending. There is no confirmed location associated with Timothy after May 2011. What remains active is the record itself, the timeline, the evidence that exists, and the unanswered questions that continue to define this case. For Timothy's father and extended family, the passage of time has not brought closure. Without certainty, grief does not resolve into an ending. It exists alongside hope, doubt, and unanswered questions, none of which can be measured or resolved by investigation alone. From a legal standpoint, the case remains open because it must. From a human standpoint, it remains unresolved because the most basic truth has never been established. What became of the child at its center? Timothy Pitzen is not remembered here as a mystery or as a headline. He is remembered as a child whose life was interrupted and whose absence continues to demand honesty about what is known and humility about what is not. In this final section, we will reflect on the case, not to draw conclusions unsupported by evidence, but to return focus to the child himself and to the responsibility that remains when answers are incomplete. When a child disappears, the absence left behind is not only physical, it reshapes time, memory, and meaning. In the case of Timothy Pitzen, the record is unusually clear in some places and entirely silent in others. We know where he was in the final days he was seen. We know who was responsible for his care. We know what evidence exists and what does not. What we do not know is what became of him. That uncertainty has invited speculation over the years. But speculation cannot stand in for evidence, and it cannot replace the responsibility to speak carefully when facts are limited. In cases like this, restraint is not avoidance, it is respect. Timothy's disappearance did not occur because he chose to vanish. It occurred within a structure of adult decisions, authority, and trust, none of which he controlled. He did not create the note that shaped public understanding of his case. He did not leave behind explanations. He did not consent to be removed from uncertainty. He was 6 years old. The unresolved nature of this case is not a failure of concern or effort. It is a reminder of the limits of investigation when evidence does not exist in recoverable form, and when a person who might have provided answers cannot be questioned. But unresolved does not mean forgotten. As long as Timothy remains missing, his name remains active in records. His image remains circulated. His case remains open. And the responsibility to tell his story accurately remains. Not to fill in gaps, not to impose meaning where none can be proven, but to hold space for truth, even when truth is incomplete. Remembering Timothy is not about reaching a conclusion. It is about acknowledging a life that mattered before it became a case, and a child who deserves to be spoken about with care. Until evidence provides answers, this story remains unfinished. And so we end where we began, with a child whose absence still asks something of the world. Attention, honesty, and remembrance. This is the Icy Bridge Files. Thank you for remembering with me. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and always remember, every story deserves to be told, and every life deserves to be remembered.